This is Dr. Scott. I'm here with Chad, and I just wanted to bring Chad on to discuss some of the experiences that he had with breaking reactive patterns, the blueprint for building a safe and healthy relationship. Chad, I'd like for you to just introduce yourself and discuss kind of like where you found me, how you found the class.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chad. I was randomly scrolling through TikTok, wasting time away in the evening one night, and just kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And the algorithm was kind of really getting to me because it kept sending me the videos that my thoughts were kind of on. And I was listening to a lot of different things in regards to psychology and psychologists and attachment styles. And then I came across Dr. Scott, and it was like getting punched in the face because it was very upfront and close and personal to my heart as to how I was individually, and something I recognized, but I don't think it was ever brought to the forefront.
Can you describe what it was, Chad, that you were experiencing, or what you saw in some of my videos that was like a punch to the face? Good metaphor, by the way.
It was the reactivity aspect of things, and people viewing me as being angry when I never perceived myself as being angry. And it was something that was expressed to me by my ex, and something I saw with dealing with my children over the years. And even at times in the workplace, as a manager, that I would become reactive instead of quote unquote taking a deep breath before I would act. And it really hit home because of the work I was doing prior to coming across you, and myself recognizing the issues that I had, the traits that I had absorbed over my life from being around my parents and how I was raised.
Okay. And can you get into like, what kind of challenges at that time when you were looking through these videos and the algorithm was kind of, bringing these psychology videos to you? What were you looking for, Chad? I mean, what was going on in your world at the time that was creating, challenges for you with reactivity with your kids or in the workplace or with your partnership?
So for myself, it's been like a 15-year journey. As now my sons are older, they're older teenagers, and I have two younger children, one in first grade and the other one in third grade. There's a big distinction between the two. And for me, I've the last couple of years, I split up with my ex, who I'd been with since I was 20 years old. And now it's been 4 going on 5 years. I started dating immediately after we split up, which wasn't it wasn't the right thing for me to do personally, but at the time I didn't necessarily recognize it. So when I came across your videos, give or take, I don't know, maybe a year ago, the first time I reached out to you and sent a message when I said you were looking for participants, I was like, man, this is me. This fits me to a T. And I think oftentimes as a man in your, middle-aged man, at some point you recognize the fact that you need to change because you're going down the path where you don't think you're going to be where you want to be, or where you think you should be. And when I was with my ex-girlfriend, we were highly reactive to each other, and we played off of all the inner workings of what you learn in this course. And we would kind of get into this death spiral circle of arguing and not really understanding each other or hearing one another and trying to anticipate each other, which ultimately led to, the fight, flight, fawn, and so forth, to the point that we ended up breaking up because we became extremely toxic for one another. I can say wholeheartedly I love the woman to death, but the thing for me that hurt the most was when she told me my love was sick and demented. And for me, over the course of taking this class, it's allowed me to understand her perspective as to why she said those words, because my reactivity and the arguing and the yelling, it it was the way I expressed love was sick and demented in a way, because it was very abusive, and I didn't see it as abusive in the time, and it really, it opened a lot of eyes for me. So after the split up, that's where I came across you, because I was just scrolling aimlessly every night on the couch when I had the TV on for background noise or trying to read a book and couldn't concentrate. And the first video that I saw, it was just like, it was like a PSA from the 80s going, "Hey, are you this way?" And I was like, "Oh man, that's me to a T." And then you take the deep dive on it, and I was like, "Oh, good Lord."
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the challenge with people are in, is that they, like you just said, like, I didn't realize how bad it really was. I feel loving feelings for somebody, but I don't know how my reactivity is actually poisoning the relationship and creating the very things that I don't want in it. So help me understand, or help my audience understand, what was the class like to take for you? What was it? How was it for you to take? What kind of how did it impact you, so to speak?
For me, as I was just leaving church prior to this interview, as I was explaining to one of the older gentlemen that I've done a men's group with, it's life changing. It's life changing in the sense that it breaks down a lot of walls that you didn't think you had. And taking the class, it allowed me, it's allowed me to be me and continue practicing me, and not being that constant pot of boiling water. And when the boiling starts, I can throw a bucket of ice cubes in it now to get that to go away. And it's not easy, it's challenging. And taking this course, you know, I think oftentimes in therapy classes, or therapy in general, they just scratch the surface. And for somebody like myself, who's always wanted to know the why, um, it definitely gives you the why behind your inner workings and how you still could be a highly successful person and be totally mentally screwed up. And you yearn for that closeness, that relationship, that intimacy of another individual, and it's like you can't get there because you're preventing yourself from doing it because of your own reactivity. And this allowed me to change. It brought down the room temperature. I'm not a hot mess all the time. Yes, I can admit that you slip up 100%.
Sure.
But as I was explaining to somebody else at work last week, when they were asking me, because I haven't been in work, I've been working remotely, and I'm back in the office now. And they sensed the change in me, and I was explaining to them, like, it's practice. Like, Michael Jordan didn't become the best player ever overnight. It's you got to keep the repetitions up.
Good.
And for myself, the challenges are, like with my children, my older teenagers, and then my younger kids. There's different things that they'll do that'll kind of I wouldn't that they could set you off as a parent. And
Of course.
it allows you to process that. And I'm doing everything in my power to be the parent that I needed when I was a kid.
Nice. So what were some of the surprises in this process for you, Chad, when you were taking the course? How did you kind of experience your eyes being opened to something new? What were some of the things about the course that made you think, like, oh wow, I didn't even know that this was what was going on behind the scenes?
The for me, it was taking the test and the defining of the 18 different schemas and showing how they all kind of played together, whether they were, number one on your scale or number 18. At some point, all of them have played a part in your life in some role, either large, significant. And as part of the group class, as we discuss things, many of the other people in the class, we all have had similar issues because you're adults, you process things that way.
Right.
And it would be like, oh, well, that time I was really hard on myself, or I was really hard on my kids here, or even my own personal issues of, not being emotionally attuned all the time to everybody around me and not showing empathy. And I thought I was empathetic. In reality, I wasn't. And
Gotcha.
and it allows you to twist and change your mind to understand. It opens everything up. Instead of the tunnel vision, you get to see the whole world.
Nice. Excellent. Excellent. So what kind of, you mentioned your children, you mentioned people at work, you mentioned men's group, things like this. What would you say are the tangible results that you're seeing in your own life with the relationships that you have?
For me, it's almost it's internal peace. It's the more I live outwardly in this, in the way I am right now, it brings a lot more internal peace where my mind isn't racing 24/7, thinking of something more I could do, or I understand that I don't need to be everybody's security blanket. And I have to be able to take care of myself first if I can take care of anyone else. And that goes with my kids too, because if I have internal strife at some point, it's going to come out on my kids one way or the other. And I feel, as I expressed to my older teenage son, that I feel like with his brother and sister, that I have a reset button to be able to be the parent that my older boys should have seen. But now my older boys can see the changes over the last several months in me, and they can learn from it. And I can openly admit my mistakes to them, and we can have open conversations to be that safe place that I thought I was, but realistically, I never was that. And it's it's going to be a slow going process with my older boys to allow them to see that and understand that, hey, dad's okay. Um,
Yeah. Good.
and most importantly, it's breaking that cycle. It's breaking that cycle that I grew up in, and it's conversations I had with my family members, my aunts and uncles related to my mom, because my mom's passed, as to why my mom was the way she was. And it's what I picked up on, and it's not something that I take lightly. Because I've always wanted to understand the why. And granted, my mom's been gone for 5 years now. I, 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 now as an adult, like, I feel sorry for her that she had to be that way.
Right. That sounds like one of those things that I think that I've heard other people say in the group that has really surprised them is, the dysfunctional cycles and the ways that we learn from our parents, implicitly learn from the reactions that they had, which kind of ingrain certain things inside of us. And then we repeat those cycles too. Was that something that was pretty surprising to you, or did you feel like you already knew all that?
It was something that I've worked on over the last year with a personal therapist, but it only scratched the surface as compared to this.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, being in, either couples counseling or some sort of counseling the last 4 or 5 years, this really it opened up the wound where you could heal it the right way. And you didn't talk about stories, but you kind of figured out yourself while you were talking about your stories and the interactions you had with your parents. And you know, I grew up trying to be everything the opposite of my father. Um, but at the same time, I became the worst traits of my mother because my mother was the one who raised me. And
Right.
that's one of those things that I don't think most people recognize and understand in the moment because, as I had said earlier, you could be a highly successful person professionally, but interpersonally, you could be a hot mess and you may not understand the why behind it.
Right. Right. Yeah, so I keep hearing you say that was a really important piece for you, is really having the understanding of what was going on behind the scenes or the why behind the scenes, and you felt like this class really nailed that down for you.
Yeah, for me, 100%, because as I was growing up, and it's something we talked in class, it was, you know, when I had a question as an inquisitive kid, you know, my often response would be, you know, what I would hear from my mother would be because I said so, or so you know, I've always had that yearning to know the why behind most things.
Hmm.
And this allowed me to understand, and you're just like, you know, the schema part and reading all those and reading them, how they're defined and how they interact and play off of one another and how they can play off your partner or your children and that interpersonal workings. It just, it's like somebody turned the lights on and you're like, oh, I did that. Ooh, probably
Yeah.
shouldn't have done that.
Right. Yeah. Good. Yeah, I think that's one of the. I'm glad you said that, because that is one of the main reasons I wanted to put this type of class together, because I've always been that person too, just very inquisitive. I want to know why things are the way that they are. And, the mistake that I often talk about in some of my social media videos is that people, who seek out relationship therapy and couples therapy or marital therapy, um, they often are looking towards the other person to change themselves. And so I wanted to put together a class that's like just more focused on you learning what you bring to the table in your relationship, so that to prove to the point that you can change your relationships if you change yourself. And when you break your own patterns of reactivity and you understand what's going on behind the scenes, it has a dramatic effect on the quality of your relationships. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And that's where you know, the recent conversations I've had with my ex-girlfriend, she said to me that she sees me as being at peace. And you know, it's not like I'm letting her behind the curtain, you know, in the land of Oz, but
Yeah.
I'm much more measured with my words. And I'm not going to say measuring the temperature of the room, but
Yeah.
a lot more delivered instead of just spewing off whatever's coming through my brain and right out my mouth, which often just gets anybody in trouble.
Sure. Yeah. And yeah, it kind of speaks to what we talk about in the class, which is the foundation of our relationships is safety and security. And once we establish safety and security in ourselves, as you're describing, feeling peaceful, then it's a lot easier for people to connect to us, and we connect to them. So, what would you tell somebody who's considering working with me or taking this class?
Don't be afraid. Take the jump. Take the jump because it was for me. It's like I spent a lifetime searching for the answers and knowing and slowly moving forward and evolving to finally just get to the edge of the cliff and be like, oh man, this is, can I commit myself to the time that it's going to take? Can I commit myself to doing the homework, to sitting through the class and being patient and just take the leap? Don't be scared. Because I think fear of change, fear of doing something different often prevents somebody from, from so many things. And that's where I was very tentative myself, because I'm usually very closed off. And you know what? I am who I am. Accept me for who I am. And just that's why I just took the leap.
So, Chad, I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate all the effort that you, one, put into this, two, the results that you're getting out of it, and just being willing to share that with other people, because I think that, if other people can hear your story and kind of see the results or know the results that you're getting from this, that's the whole purpose of this class, is to transform people and really change their lives. So thank you for being willing to share that with me, with the group. And, I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you.